The night had started just like any other. He was sitting in his small backyard, leaning back on an old wooden chair, staring at the endless sky above him. The stars were shining more brightly than usual, as if they were alive, twinkling in strange patterns. He had always been fascinated by the sky ever since he was a child. Whenever life felt heavy, he would go outside and look up, letting the stars remind him how vast the universe really was. On that night, however, something about the stars felt different. He narrowed his eyes, watching carefully. The usual slow sparkle of stars seemed to change into something more purposeful. At first, he thought it was just his imagination, maybe a trick of tired eyes. But then he noticed that some of the lights were moving, not in the slow drift of the Earth's rotation, but in sharp, deliberate patterns. One star shifted to the left, then another curved downward, and then two of them lined up, glowing brighter than the rest. A shiver ran through him. "That's not normal," he whispered to himself. He had seen airplanes, satellites, even shooting stars before, but this was none of those. The lights were far too steady, far too controlled. For a moment he thought about recording it on his phone, but instead he simply sat frozen, unable to take his eyes off the sight. The night grew quieter around him. The crickets that usually filled the air with sound had stopped. Even the dogs from the nearby houses, who barked at almost everything, had gone silent. It was as if nature itself was holding its breath, watching the sky with him. His heart beat faster, not with fear exactly, but with a strange, deep sense of expectation, like something hidden was about to reveal itself. He blinked, and when his eyes opened again, the lights had rearranged themselves into a shape. It looked almost like a path glowing faintly, stretching across the sky. The more he stared at it, the more he felt an odd pull inside his chest, like a gentle hand reaching for him, urging him to follow. He shook his head, trying to laugh at himself. "I must be tired. I've been working too much. This is just my brain playing tricks." But the feeling didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. The pull wasn't painful, but it was impossible to ignore. He rubbed his arms, feeling goosebumps rise against his skin. The cool air should have comforted him, but instead it made the night feel even more alive, as if every leaf, every blade of grass was watching him. Trying to calm down, he went inside his house. The lights flickered as he entered, buzzing faintly before going out completely. The sudden darkness startled him. He reached for the switch again, flipping it up and down, but nothing happened. The whole house had gone silent, powerless. When he looked out the window, he realized the entire neighborhood was dark too. A blackout. But then, as if to contradict the darkness, a strange glow shimmered faintly outside. He stepped out once more, and what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. The glow wasn't from the stars. It was on the ground. A soft, silvery light stretched across the street, curving toward the line of trees beyond the neighborhood. It looked almost like a trail, glowing just bright enough to guide the way. His heart thudded. Every sensible thought in his mind told him to stay inside, to wait until the power came back, to ignore whatever strange thing was happening outside. But the pull in his chest had grown stronger, almost insistent. He felt like if he ignored it, he would regret it forever. Something deep inside whispered that this night was not an accident. Against his better judgment, he followed the glow. His feet moved slowly at first, careful and uncertain, but the closer he got to the edge of the woods, the more his steps quickened. He didn't even notice that the silence around him had become absolute. No owls, no wind, no rustling leaves, just his breathing and the faint hum of that glowing path. When he reached the first line of trees, he hesitated. The forest looked darker than usual, the tall trees standing like silent guardians. The glowing path slipped between them like a thread of silver, vanishing deeper inside. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the decision before him. He could still turn back. He could still walk home, lock the doors, and convince himself it was all a dream. But even as he thought it, he knew he wouldn't. His whole life he had felt a strange emptiness, as though something important was missing, but he didn't know what. Now, for the first time, he felt that missing piece was calling to him. He stepped into the woods. The air grew cooler immediately, wrapping around him like a cloak. Shadows pressed close on either side of the glowing path, but the silver light kept him steady. The deeper he went, the stronger the pull became, until it wasn't just in his chest but in his whole being. It felt like he was being drawn toward something or someone who had been waiting for him. The path ended in a small clearing. At first he saw nothing, only the faint glow of the ground fading into darkness. He turned in slow circles, his heart hammering, unsure of what he was supposed to find. And then, the air seemed to shimmer. It was like the night itself was bending, folding into a shape. The shadows thickened, then broke apart, revealing a figure that seemed to step out of the stars themselves. She was tall, taller than any person he had ever met, her presence radiant and commanding. Light seemed to pour from her skin, not blinding but soft like the glow of a full moon. Her eyes shimmered with depth, carrying colors he had never seen before, shades that seemed to shift with every glance. For a long moment, he couldn't breathe. He wasn't looking at a human. He knew deep down that this being was something far beyond Earth. She was alien, yet there was no terror in her presence, only awe. Her gaze locked on him, sharp yet strangely gentle, and he had the wild thought that she knew him already. That somehow, in some way, she had been looking for him for a very long time. He didn't move. He couldn't. He was caught between fear and wonder, between disbelief and the undeniable truth standing before him. And in that silence, under the watch of 1,000 stars, he realized that his life was no longer ordinary. It had just changed forever. The clearing felt like another world. He stood there, frozen in place, staring at the figure that had appeared as if she had stepped right out of the night sky. His heart raced, his palms grew sweaty, and his legs trembled, but no part of him could turn away. It was as if his body already knew he was standing in the presence of something far beyond human. The woman, if she could even be called that, stood taller than him, her posture regal, her form glowing faintly as though she carried a piece of the stars within her. Her long, flowing hair shimmered with silver strands that caught the faintest glimmers of light. And her eyes were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were vast, deep, and alive, shifting between shades of blue, green, and gold, as if they were windows to galaxies he couldn't comprehend. For several long moments there was silence. He didn't know whether to speak, to run, or to kneel. All he could do was stare. The figure tilted her head slightly, studying him with the same intensity, and though her gaze was strong, it wasn't cruel. In fact, there was something almost familiar about it, as though she had been waiting for this moment, waiting for him. His throat felt dry, but he managed to whisper, Who are you?" The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took a slow step forward. The ground beneath her feet glowed faintly where she walked, and the silver light of the path seemed to brighten at her presence. He felt his heart leap into his chest as she came closer. She was taller than he had thought, her presence towering, yet graceful, powerful, yet strangely comforting. When she was only a few feet away, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft, melodic, yet it carried a weight that seemed to echo through the trees. "Do not be afraid. I mean you no harm." The sound of her voice sent shivers through him. It wasn't like any human voice he had ever heard. It was richer, deeper, carrying a resonance that seemed to touch his very soul. He swallowed hard, but his fear eased just a little at her words. Still, confusion clouded his mind. "What are you? How are you even here?" A small, almost gentle smile touched her lips. "I am not of your world," she said, "but I have crossed the stars to find you." His breath caught. The words didn't feel like some strange fantasy. The way she said them with such quiet certainty made it impossible to doubt her. He wanted to argue, to tell himself this was a dream, but deep down a voice inside whispered that this was real. He shook his head, trying to steady his thoughts. "Me? You came all this way? For me? That doesn't make any sense. I'm nobody. Just ordinary. Her gaze softened, but it never wavered. She took another step closer, and now she was right before him, so close he could see the faint patterns glowing across her skin, delicate like constellations. You are far from ordinary, she said gently. I have searched for you longer than you can imagine. The weight of her words settled over him like a blanket. 1,000 questions ran through his mind. Why him? What did she mean? What was happening? But his voice failed him. He simply stood there, his chest rising and falling quickly, his body caught between fear and awe. Then, something happened that he could never have expected. Slowly, with deliberate care, the figure reached out her arms. For one tense moment, he thought she might harm him. But instead, she stepped forward and pulled him into an embrace. He stiffened instantly, his whole body shocked. Her form was warm, radiating comfort like sunlight on a cold day. Despite her otherworldly glow, she felt solid, real, alive. His breath caught in his throat, and he didn't know whether to push away or to sink into her hold. Her voice came again, but this time it was softer, closer, a whisper right at his ear. I've finally found you, my human. The words stunned him. His eyes widened, his breath quickened. My human. She had called him hers as though he belonged to her, as though he had always belonged to her. He wanted to ask her what she meant, but the warmth of her embrace left him momentarily speechless. When she pulled back slightly, he saw something in her expression that he hadn't expected. It wasn't the coldness of a ruler, or the pride of someone powerful, it was relief. Her glowing eyes softened, and for the first time, she looked less like a queen of the stars, and more like someone who had been searching for far too long. Why me? He finally managed to say, his voice shaking. Why are you saying this to me? She studied him, her gaze never leaving his face. Because it is the truth. Across the stars, across time itself, there has always been a bond. And that bond has led me here to you. He shook his head in disbelief. This can't be real, I must be dreaming. She lifted her hand slowly and touched his cheek, her touch gentle, almost human. Does this feel like a dream? She asked softly. The warmth of her hand against his skin was undeniable. His heart hammered in his chest. Everything inside him screamed that this was impossible, yet everything around him, her voice, her presence, the glowing path, told him it was all real. The forest seemed to lean in as if listening. The silence was thick, yet it wasn't empty. It was alive, carrying the weight of something far greater than him. He wanted to ask more, but he couldn't form the words. He was overwhelmed by the moment, by her presence, by the strange pull that had led him here. And in that silence, he realized something that shook him deeply. He wasn't afraid anymore. There was still confusion, still disbelief. But somewhere beneath it all, there was also a spark of something else. Trust. A part of him, hidden deep within, wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that she had truly come across the stars for him. The figure, no, the queen, for that was what she was, watched him carefully, as though she could see every thought, running through his mind. Then she spoke again, her voice steady but soft. Do not fight what you already feel. You know this moment is not an accident. You know I was meant to find you. His lips parted, but no words came. Because she was right. Somewhere in his heart, he had always felt there was something missing, something waiting for him beyond the ordinary life he had lived. And now, standing in that glowing clearing embraced by a queen not of this world, he felt that missing piece for the first time. The night had brought him to her, and nothing would ever be the same again. The embrace lingered longer than he expected, and though every part of him screamed that this moment was beyond reason, he couldn't push her away. The warmth that came from her touch was unlike anything he had ever felt. It wasn't just physical warmth. It was deeper, as if her presence was reaching into his very soul and soothing something he hadn't even known was aching. When she finally released him, he stumbled back a little, his chest rising and falling quickly. He looked at her, trying to form words, but nothing made sense in his mind. He wanted to demand answers, to ask why she had come for him, why she called him her human, but all that came out was a broken whisper. "What do you mean? Why, me?" The queen's glowing eyes softened, her voice almost tender. "Because you are the one I have been searching for. Across endless nights, across the silence of the stars, I have followed the thread that ties us together, and now I have found you." Her words only deepened his confusion. He shook his head, taking a step back. No, that's impossible. I don't even know you. I'm just a normal person. I'm not important. I don't understand what you're saying." She didn't argue. She didn't press him. Instead, she studied him with a kind of patience that felt ancient, as if she had stood in this very moment 1,000 times in her dreams. Then, slowly, she reached out her hand again, not to pull him close this time, but to gently touch the center of his chest. The moment her palm rested against him, a surge of energy spread through him, warm, glowing, alive. He gasped, staggering slightly. Images flickered in his mind, strange stars he had never seen, vast cities built from shimmering light, beings with wings of crystal and eyes full of galaxies. And in all those fleeting visions, one face remained the same. Hers. Always hers. His breath shook as the images faded, leaving him trembling. What was that?" he asked, his voice uneven. Her expression was calm, though her eyes carried something deeper, something like hope. "A glimpse of what your heart already remembers. You may not know it now, but our lives have touched before. I have carried the memory, and though your world has forgotten, your soul has not." The words were too much. He pressed a hand to his forehead, feeling dizzy. "That can't be true. I've never been off this planet. I've never seen any of that. You must be wrong. You've made some mistake." For the first time, a faint sadness touched her expression, yet she shook her head gently. "There is no mistake. I know you. I have always known you." Her voice softened, becoming almost like a whisper carried on the night air. "When I held you just now, it was not the first time. It was the return of something I have waited for, through lifetimes, through distances you cannot yet imagine." Her words sank into him like heavy stones. A strange, unexplainable part of him wanted to believe her. The warmth he felt when she touched him, the pull in his chest that had guided him into the forest, the visions that flashed in his mind, they all whispered that there was truth here. But the rational part of him fought back, reminding him that he was just human, that none of this made sense. He stepped back again, shaking his head. I don't know what to believe." The queen's gaze followed him, not with anger, but with understanding. She moved no closer, respecting the space he created. "You do not need to believe now," she said gently. "The truth will reveal itself in time. For now, all you need to know is this: you are not alone. You have never been alone. I have carried your presence within me across the stars, and at last I can look into your eyes and know you are real." Something in her words struck him deep. He had always lived quietly, always feeling like something was missing, like a piece of himself was out there but unreachable. And now, hearing her speak, he wondered if this was what he had been waiting for without knowing. Still, doubt lingered. But why me? Out of all the people in the world, why me? Her answer was simple, but it carried the weight of a vow. Because you are mine, and I am yours. The way she said it sent a shiver through him. It wasn't possessive, not like a claim made out of control or power. It was something deeper, like a truth spoken aloud for the first time. He turned his face upward, looking at the sky above them. The stars still shimmered, but now they felt closer, heavier. as if they were listening. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, almost to himself. "But it doesn't feel wrong either." The queen stepped closer again, but not to touch him this time. She simply stood near, her presence a quiet comfort. "Your world has told you what is possible and what is not. But your heart already knows the truth. That is why you felt the pull tonight. That is why you could not stay away." Her words reminded him of the strange call he had felt earlier, that invisible pull guiding him to the forest. He realized she was right. He could have ignored it, but he didn't. Some part of him had wanted to come, had needed to come. He lowered his eyes back to hers. "I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't even know what this is." Her expression softened again, and for a moment she almost looked vulnerable. "You don't need to be ready. All I ask is that you allow yourself to see. Walk beside me, even if only for a little while. In time, the truth will no longer frighten you." His breath slowed, his heartbeat still uneven but steadier than before. He felt torn between the ordinary life he had always known and the extraordinary truth that now stood before him. The queen reached out once more, not to embrace him, but to let her fingers lightly brush against his hand. The touch was simple, but it carried the same warmth as before, calming the storm inside him. For the first time since the night began, he didn't pull away. The night had grown colder, but he didn't notice the chill anymore. The warmth of her hand against his was enough to make the world around him blur. His heart was still racing, but the fear that once gripped him was slowly softening into something else: curiosity, wonder, and a deep pull he could not explain. He couldn't deny it anymore. Something in her presence felt like the answer to a question he had carried his whole life but never spoken aloud. The queen looked at him as if she could read the storm of thoughts in his mind. Her glowing eyes carried patience, as though she knew he needed more than whispers of fate to understand. Finally she spoke, her voice calm and steady. "You seek answers. I will give them. You deserve the truth." He swallowed hard, trying to prepare himself. "Then tell me, who are you? Why do you say I'm yours? And what is this bond you keep talking about?" For a long moment she said nothing. Instead, she lifted her gaze to the stars above them. It was almost as if she was gathering the strength to share something heavy. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, more vulnerable. "I am the queen of a people who live far beyond your skies. My world exists on the edge of galaxies your kind has never seen. For centuries, my people have survived through power. But that power has been fading. Long ago, we discovered that our lives are tied to a rare energy, a light that only certain souls carry. Without it, our world will fall into silence." Her words sent a shiver down his spine. He listened closely, afraid to even breathe too loudly, afraid he might miss something important. She lowered her eyes back to him, and her voice grew more intense, though still gentle. "Generations ago, when the stars aligned in ways even my kind did not expect, our worlds touched. For a brief moment, humans and my people met. And in that time, a promise was made. A promise that one day, a human, carrying the rare light, would be born. That human would be the one to stand beside me, to share their strength, and in return I would share mine. It is not just survival, it is destiny." He felt his chest tighten, the thought that his life was connected to the survival of an entire alien race was too big to hold all at once. His hand shook slightly as he asked, "And you think that person is me?" "I do not think," she replied softly. "I know." The certainty in her voice made him stumble back a step. His whole life he had been ordinary. He had gone to school, worked normal jobs, lived quietly. Nothing about him had ever been special. Yet here she stood, a queen from beyond the stars, telling him that his life was more important than he could imagine. He shook his head, his voice breaking. "But I'm just a man. I can't be what you're describing. I don't even understand what this light is. How could I possibly be the one you've been searching for?" The queen stepped closer again, not to overwhelm him, but to meet his eyes. "Because I felt you before I ever saw you. Across the silence of space, I felt the call of your soul, Tonight, the pull you felt, the reason you came here, that was the bond between us. It has always been there, waiting to awaken. Her words echoed in his heart. He remembered the strange pull, the way he couldn't resist stepping into the forest, the visions that appeared when she touched him. Deep inside, he knew she wasn't lying. Still, he couldn't shake his fear. If I accept this, if what you're saying is true, what happens to me? Do I leave everything behind? Do I stop being who I am? Her expression softened with kindness, and she shook her head. No, you will not lose yourself. You will become more of who you are. The light you carry was never meant to stay hidden. With me, it will grow. With you, my people will survive. Together, we will create something neither of us could alone. Einar felt his chest rise and fall quickly as he absorbed her words. The thought scared him, but it also stirred something inside him, something that had been asleep for far too long. The emptiness he had felt all his life, the quiet loneliness he had carried without understanding. It all suddenly made sense. He had been waiting for something, for someone. And now, here she was. The queen looked at him with steady eyes. I know you are afraid, but fear does not mean you are weak. It means you understand the weight of what is before you. And still, I ask you to trust me. Silence filled the clearing. He looked at the stars above, then back at her. He didn't have all the answers, and he didn't know what the future would bring. But deep down, he realized he wanted to trust her. He wanted to believe that his life was more than ordinary, that maybe he really had been chosen for something greater. And though his voice trembled, he whispered, "Then, I'll try." A light flickered in her eyes, not of power, but of joy. She reached forward, her hand brushing his once again, and in that small touch he felt strength rush through him, as if the stars themselves had entered his veins. The queen's smile was soft, yet filled with triumph. Then our journey begins. The night after that moment no longer felt like just another night. The stars above seemed brighter, closer, as if they were listening to the vow he had just made. He stood there, still trembling, but something in him had shifted. He was no longer just a man staring at the sky. He was someone who had been chosen, someone who now carried a destiny far greater than himself. The queen looked at him with a gentleness that surprised him. He had expected a ruler to be cold, commanding, perhaps even distant. But she wasn't. In her eyes he saw relief, even gratitude. "You cannot imagine how long I have waited for this moment," she whispered. "I thought I might never find you. And yet, here you are." Her words wrapped around him like a blanket. For the first time in years, he felt seen, truly seen. He had always thought of himself as small, unimportant, but in her gaze he felt like the most important person in the universe. He cleared his throat, trying to steady his voice. "What happens now? Do I just leave everything behind? My life? My world?" She shook her head slowly. "Not leave. Change. This bond is not about abandoning who you are. It is about embracing what you were always meant to become. I will not take you away by force. Every step forward will be yours to choose." Her words calmed him. He had been afraid of losing everything, afraid that trusting her meant erasing the life he knew. But now he realized it was different. This wasn't about losing, it was about becoming more. She stepped closer, her presence glowing softly in the night. "Together, our union will bring balance. My world needs your light, and your world will one day need mine. What we build will not be for us alone, it will ripple through both our people." He felt the weight of her words. It was overwhelming, yet strangely inspiring. He had never imagined his life could matter this much, that his choices could reach across worlds. For the first time he felt purpose, a real, unshakable purpose. A silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with unspoken understanding. Then, slowly, she extended her arms again. He hesitated for only a moment before stepping into her embrace. This time, he didn't freeze. He let himself sink into it. The warmth that surrounded him felt like home, even though she was not of his world. As she held him close, he felt the bond between them pulse stronger, like two threads weaving together into something unbreakable. Her whisper brushed against his ear again, soft and full of promise. "You are mine, and I am yours. Together, we will walk into forever." He closed his eyes, letting the words sink deep into him. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel like something was missing. He didn't feel ordinary. He didn't feel alone. He felt whole. When he opened his eyes again, he knew nothing would ever be the same. His life had been ordinary yesterday, but tonight, under the watch of the stars and in the arms of an alien queen, his forever had just begun.